The automatic doors of Fresh Mart's supermarket slid open as Dorothy Miller walked through them at exactly 7:55 a.m. on a gray Monday morning in Springfield, Illinois. At 68 years old, with silver hair pinned back in a neat bun and wearing the store's bright blue vest over a floral blouse, Dorothy looked distinctly out of place among the college-aged cashiers already manning their registers. Jessica Chen, a 22-year-old cashier with purple streaked hair and multiple ear piercings, nudged her co-worker Tyler Rodriguez as Dorothy approached the customer service desk. "Seriously? They hired someone's grandmother?" she whispered, not bothering to lower her voice much. Tyler, a business student working part-time, shook his head in disbelief. "My back hurts after 8 hours on my feet. How's she gonna handle Black Friday crowds?" Dorothy pretended not to hear the whispers as store manager Kevin Walsh appeared with her name tag and training materials. At 35, Kevin had hired Dorothy reluctantly. Corporate policy encouraged diverse hiring, and her application had been thorough despite her age. But watching her now, moving slowly toward Register 4, he wondered if he'd made a mistake. "Don't worry about them," Kevin said quietly, gesturing toward the other employees. "They'll warm up to you once they see you can keep up." Dorothy smiled gently. "Oh, I'm not worried about keeping up, dear. I'm more concerned about keeping busy." What Dorothy's new co-workers didn't know was that she'd spent 35 years as a social services coordinator for Sangamon County, helping families navigate food assistance programs, housing support, and emergency aid. She'd retired 2 years earlier when her husband Earl passed away, but sitting alone in their too-quiet house had nearly driven her to despair. Dorothy had applied to Fresh Mart not because she needed the money, Earl's pension and their savings were adequate, but because she needed purpose. She'd chosen this particular store in a working-class neighborhood because she recognized the signs of struggle she'd dealt with professionally for decades. Families buying generic brands exclusively, customers carefully counting change, parents making impossible choices between necessities. Her first week was challenging in ways that had nothing to do with scanning barcodes or memorizing produce codes. Maria Santos, a shift supervisor in her 40s, assigned Dorothy the slowest register during peak hours, assuming she couldn't handle the pace. Brandon Phillips, a 19-year-old stock clerk, openly rolled his eyes when Dorothy asked for help lifting heavy items. But Dorothy watched and learned more than inventory systems. She noticed Sarah Williams, a young mother who always shopped alone at closing time, buying formula and diapers while her food stamp balance ran low. She observed Robert Hayes, an elderly man who came in twice daily buying small amounts, clearly struggling with mobility, but too proud to ask for help. Most importantly, Dorothy recognized the signs of families in crisis, the same patterns she'd identified for 3 decades in her county office. Dorothy's first intervention was barely noticeable. Sarah Williams stood at Register 4 during the store's final hour, formula and baby food spread across the counter, checking her EBT balance on her phone with growing anxiety. The total exceeded her remaining benefits by $12. "Honey, let me check something," Dorothy said softly, studying the receipt. She pointed to a promotional sign above the register. "That formula's on sale. Buy 2, get 1 free. The system sometimes misses it." There was no such promotion, but Dorothy calmly voided the transaction and re-rang everything, this time entering her employee discount code and a manager override she'd memorized from Kevin's training session. The total came to exactly Sarah's remaining balance. Sarah's eyes filled with tears. "Thank you. I don't know what I would have done." "We've all been there, sweetheart," Dorothy replied, bagging the items carefully. "Sometimes the system just needs a little help to work right." Over the following weeks, Dorothy's system adjustments became more frequent and creative. When Robert Hayes struggled to carry his groceries, she'd arrange for Brandon to help with store policy for customer safety. When families came up short on essential items, Dorothy would find overlooked coupons or discover mysterious price adjustments that made purchases affordable. Dorothy's interventions didn't go entirely unnoticed. Kevin Walsh had begun questioning the frequency of voids and manager overrides at Register 4, while Jessica and Tyler grew suspicious of Dorothy's consistently long checkout times, despite having fewer customers. "She's either incompetent or something weird is going on," Jessica complained during a staff meeting. "Nobody's that slow accidentally," but other voices were beginning to speak up. Sarah Williams had started bringing Dorothy homemade cookies, and Robert Hayes always requested her register. Mrs. Patricia Lopez, a regular customer with 3 young children, had specifically thanked Kevin for hiring the nice lady who always has time to help. The situation came to a head on a busy Saturday afternoon when Dorothy was caught in the act. Amanda Foster, a single mother of 2, was trying to buy groceries for the week while her children waited in the car. Her card was declined, leaving her $35 short, with no backup payment method. Dorothy was quietly reaching for her own wallet when Tyler appeared behind her register. "Dorothy, what are you doing?" "Just helping a customer with a payment issue, dear." Tyler realized what was happening and called Kevin over. In front of a growing line of customers, the situation became publicly awkward. Amanda stood frozen with embarrassment while her children waited outside, and Dorothy faced potential termination for violation of company policy. "Dorothy, we need to talk," Kevin said firmly, leading her to the customer service office while Amanda stood uncertainly by the register. But before Kevin could begin disciplinary proceedings, Amanda spoke up. "Please don't fire her. She wasn't stealing. She was trying to help me feed my kids." The confession opened floodgates of similar stories. Sarah Williams, who had followed them to the office, revealed months of Dorothy's assistance. Robert Hayes, waiting in the checkout line, shuffled over to share how Dorothy had ensured he could afford his heart medication. Mrs. Lopez described how Dorothy had helped her navigate WIC benefits and food stamp applications. "I don't understand," Kevin said, looking at Dorothy with new confusion. "Why would you risk your job for customers you barely know?" Dorothy sat quietly for a moment, then pulled out her wallet and showed them a county ID card from her previous job. "I spent 35 years helping families access the services they needed to survive. When I retired, I thought that part of my life was over." She gestured toward the store around them. "But then I realized families in crisis don't just exist in county offices. They're everywhere, in grocery stores, struggling to afford basic necessities, while people like me ring up their purchases and pretend not to notice." The office fell silent as Dorothy continued. "I know I broke company policy, and I understand if you need to let me go. But I couldn't stand watching families go without food when I had the ability to help." What happened next surprised everyone, especially Dorothy. Kevin, instead of terminating her employment, asked her to explain exactly what she'd been doing and why. As Dorothy described her observations and interventions, Kevin realized she'd been providing informal social services that the store and the community desperately needed. "You've been doing customer outreach," Kevin said slowly, "helping people access programs and benefits they qualify for but don't know about." Jessica, who had been listening from the doorway, stepped forward. "My mom had to choose between groceries and electricity last winter. If someone like Dorothy had been there." The conversation that followed changed Fresh Mart's entire approach to community service. Kevin contacted corporate headquarters to discuss implementing a customer assistance program with Dorothy as coordinator. Her role would involve helping customers navigate benefit applications, connecting families with local resources, and providing the kind of support that turned shopping into community care. Within a month, Dorothy's position had been officially restructured. She still worked Register 4, but now she also maintained a small office space where customers could privately discuss assistance needs. The store partnered with local social services to provide information about food stamps, WIC benefits, utility assistance, and job training programs. Dorothy's co-workers, initially skeptical of her capabilities, became her strongest advocates. Jessica started a small fund to help customers caught short at checkout. Tyler used his business classes to help customers create budgets and financial plans. Even Brandon, the stock clerk, began volunteering to deliver groceries to elderly customers who couldn't carry them. "She turned us into a real community," Sarah Williams said during the store's first customer appreciation event. "Before Dorothy, this was just a place to buy food. Now it's a place where people take care of each other." The success caught the attention of other Fresh Mart locations, and Dorothy found herself training older employees across the region in customer outreach programs. Her model proved that hiring older workers brought more than experience. It brought wisdom, compassion, and a lifetime of skills younger employees were still developing. 6 months after Dorothy's first day, she stood at Register 4 during the evening shift, helping a young father navigate WIC benefits while his toddler played with the shopping cart. The store bustled with familiar faces, customers who had become friends, co-workers who had become partners in community service. Jessica approached with the day's receipts, smiling at the sight of Dorothy patiently explaining benefit categories to the confused father. "Remember when we thought she was too old for this job?" Tyler, restocking nearby shelves, laughed. "Now I think we were too young to understand what this job could be." Dorothy finished with her customer and turned to her young colleagues. "Age isn't about what you can't do anymore, dear ones. It's about finally knowing what's truly worth doing." That evening, as Dorothy locked up Register 4 and gathered her purse, she felt the deep satisfaction she'd missed since retirement. She was exactly where she belonged, not too old for the work, but finally old enough to do it right.